Welcome to today's episode of Medals and More, where we explore the fascinating space where sports and business meet analytics. I'm Grant Pedro, and I've spent my life passionate about two things: helping people perform at their best and understanding the numbers that drive that performance. Whether it's an athlete chasing gold on the track or an employee striving to grow in the workplace, the principles of success are surprisingly similar. Today's episode is called The Data Behind the Medal: Lessons from Sport for HR Analytics. We'll dive into how the same data that helps athletes run faster, jump higher, and recover smarter can also help HR leaders, managers, and business owners build healthier, more productive teams. So if you've ever wondered how Olympic coaching connects to office boardrooms, or how the lessons of sports can transform the way we manage people, then stay tuned, because this episode is packed with insights you can take into your own work and life. When we think about athletics, most of us picture the athlete at the starting line, the whistle blowing, the roar of the crowd, and the glory of crossing the finish line first. But what we don't always see is the data behind the medal moment. Modern sport is as much about numbers as it is about talent. Coaches and athletes rely on a huge range of analytics to squeeze out every fraction of a second, every millimeter of improvement. For example, sprinters like Usain Bolt had their stride length, reaction time, and force application analyzed down to the tiniest detail. In distance running, athletes track VO2 max, lactate thresholds, and recovery times. In team sports, GPS vests measure speed, positioning, and workload to avoid injuries. It's not just raw talent anymore, it's science. The British cycling team, for instance, became the most famous for their concept of marginal gains, improving performance by just 1% in many small areas, from bike design to sleep quality. Add those up and you get world champions. What's interesting is that this data doesn't replace the human element, it enhances it. The numbers tell a story, but it's the coach who interprets the story, and the athlete who applies it with the discipline and focus. Data doesn't win medals on its own, people do. And this is where the lesson starts outside of sport, because just like an athlete can't improve what they don't measure, organizations can't unlock potential without first understanding their people. So before we jump into HR analytics in the next segment, I want you to think about this. Every gold medal has a data set behind it, and every great team or business can learn from the same principle. Now, let's take the lessons from athletics and walk them straight into the workplace. In sport, every metric matters: stride length, recovery time, nutrition, training loads. Coaches use this information to fine-tune performance and prevent burnout. And in HR, the exact same principle applies, just with different data. Think about it. In athletics, we track speed and stamina. In the workplace, we track performance metrics like sales numbers, project completion rates, or customer satisfaction scores. Both are simply measures of output. Okay? In sport, we carefully monitor recovery, sleep cycles, injury prevention, rest days, because no athlete can perform at their best if they overtrained. In HR, that's the equivalent of employee wellness. It shows up as absenteeism rates, burnout surveys, or even patterns in sick leave. If we don't track recovery at work, we risk pushing employees past their breaking point. Then there's coaching feedback loops. Every athlete gets regular feedback from a coach, sometimes daily, sometimes after every training session. The workplace version: performance reviews, mentorship conversations, and team check-ins. The frequency and quality of feedback directly affect how people grow. But here's the key: in both worlds, the purpose of data is not surveillance. It's not about policing or catching someone out. It's about growth. It's about helping people see where they are today and where they could be tomorrow. Let me give you a practical HR example. Imagine a company with a high absenteeism rate. At first glance, management might think our employees are lazy. But once you dig into the data, you discover that absenteeism spikes on certain shifts or with certain managers. Just like a coach reviewing an athlete's training log, you can adjust the system. Maybe it's the workload, maybe it's the scheduling, maybe it's the leadership style. Suddenly, absenteeism drops, productivity rises, and morale improves. That's exactly how a coach would adjust an athlete's training if they noticed overtraining signs in the data. You don't blame the athlete, you tweak the plan. So here's the big parallel. Athletes and employees both want to perform at their best. Athletes use sports analytics to push limits safely. Organizations use HR analytics to do the same, to build environments where people can thrive. And just like in sports, the difference between average and excellent often comes down to the small, consistent insights that data provides. Now that we've looked at the parallels, let's bring this thing to life with some stories. First, let's go back to the world of sports. The British cycling team is one of the best known examples of analytics-driven success. For decades, they were mediocre on the world stage. Then a new coach, Sir Dave Brailsford, introduced the philosophy of marginal gains, and he believed that if they could improve every aspect of cycling performance by just 1%, those small changes would add up to a game-changing difference. So they started measuring and tweaking everything like bike weight, rider position, training intensity, even the type of pillows the athletes slept on in hotels. They tracked the tiniest details, and slowly those 1% improvements multiplied. The result? Within a few years, British cycling went from underperformers to Olympic gold medalists and Tour de France winners. Now let's step back into the HR world. A large retail company once struggled with high employee turnover in their stores. Management assumed it was because of low pay or lack of career opportunities. But when they dug into the data, a different story emerged. Some stores had almost no resignations, while others couldn't hold on to their staff for more than a few months. By analyzing the data further, they discovered that the real factor was leadership. Stores with supportive, communicative leaders retained their people. Stores with poor managers bled talent, no matter what the pay was. Once the company recognized this, they didn't just throw money at the problem. They invested in leadership training, coaching, and better manager-employee feedback systems. Within a year, turnover dropped dramatically. What's the connection between these two stories? In both cases, success came from looking beyond assumptions and digging into the data. British cycling could have just trained harder. The retail company could have just raised salaries. But instead, they measured, analyzed, and discovered the true levers of performance. And that's the big takeaway here. Whether on the bike or in the boardroom, data tells a story that can challenge our assumptions and lead to smarter decisions. Because at the end of the day, the difference between winning gold and staying stuck in mediocrity is often hidden in the details. Details you can only see when you take analytics seriously. Alright, so we've seen how data drives athletes to gold medals and how companies can use the same mindset to unlock people's potential. But let's bring this down to you and me. What can you actually do tomorrow to start thinking like a coach and acting like an analyst? Well, I want to give you 3 simple practical takeaways. Start small. Track one meaningful metric. Don't overwhelm yourself with 100 data points. Just pick one that really matters in your context. If you're an HR professional, maybe it's absenteeism rates. If you're a manager, maybe it's project completion time. And if you're an athlete, it might be your weekly mileage. Start with one and track it consistently. You'll be surprised what you learn. Number 2, don't just look at numbers, tell the story. Data by itself can feel cold. But when you connect it to a story, it comes alive. For example, instead of saying absenteeism is up 12%, you could say, we've noticed a spike in sick days on Monday mornings, which could be a sign of burnout or low engagement. Numbers give you the clues, but stories make those clues actionable. Then number 3, think like a coach, not a boss. A good coach uses data to help athletes grow, not to punish them. And that's the same approach we should take in the workplace. Use analytics to open conversations, to guide development, and to encourage progress. When people feel like the data is there to help them succeed, not to catch them out, they lean into the process. So here's your challenge for the week. Pick one area of your work, your team, or even your personal life where you can start tracking data. Write it down, collect a little information, and then ask yourself, what story is this data telling me? Remember, every gold medal starts with a spreadsheet, and every breakthrough in your workplace can start with a single data point.